Some of New South Wales' highest earning politicians and bureaucrats will have wages frozen, which could save taxpayers up to $250 million a year. The Minns government has acted on its pre-election promise to pass legislation freezing wages for politicians who earn more than a base salary of $172,000 a year. The freeze will impact department secretaries, CEOs, executives, office holders, judicial officers and commissioners from July of this year. The money saved will go towards boosting salaries of frontline workers such as paramedics, nurses and teachers. Joining me live now is Rose Jackson. She is the New South Wales Minister for Housing, Water and Homelessness. Thanks so much for your time. Before we get on to the main part of your portfolio, freezing the wages of politicians, not really going to solve that much, is it? Why do it?
I mean, it's not going to solve the entire problem, and we have a comprehensive package that we're working through in order to identify budget savings. But you know what? Everyone's got to tighten their belt, and if we can save, a couple of $100 million over 2 years by freezing the pay of politicians and senior public servants and redirect that money to support the wage increases of nurses and teachers and frontline workers, I think that's great. Every dollar does count. Budgets are about choices, and I think this is a good first step. It's not the whole race, it's not the whole marathon, but you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah, Rose, let's talk about your portfolio now, because you have quite a job ahead of you. We talk about day in, day out, there's just simply not enough houses and not enough houses being built in New South Wales. So let's start big. Can you give us a timeline and how many homes, and have you identified land where these can be built already?
So we are undertaking the process to try and identify our 5-year housing goal horizon now. That is something that the Greater Cities Commission is working with the whole cabinet on. I mean, we are talking about hundreds of thousands of homes over that 5 years. We know that is the size of the task. It's not just about that overall number. We're also working to deliver targets in terms of social and affordable housing as part of that. So we need overall supply, but we also need supply that directly targets low-income people and people who need affordable housing. That piece of work is sitting alongside the audit of government land that is going on right now. I receive weekly briefings about where we are identifying parcels of land right across the state that is owned by government, local government, and looking to activate that land into a pipeline to deliver those hundreds of thousands of homes.
Okay, so who's slowing down the process here? Because we know bureaucracies do move pretty slowly. One, have they been told to hurry up, get on with it, give you and identify this land? But what about councils? I mean, we read this morning that Randwick Council is trying to find a development that's not even within their boundaries. If you've ever dealt with the council in Sydney, some are worse than others. They are painful to deal with, and approvals take months and months and months. What are you doing about that, or can you do anything about it?
Yeah, we absolutely can do something about it. And so, look, we're starting, a collaborative process. We want people to come on this journey, Laura. We want everyone to understand we're in a housing crisis and everyone's got to do their bit. It's certainly true that the state planning system needs reform, and we're working on that. But to the extent that local government is not prepared to come on this journey to deliver affordable housing, well, we're going to be putting targets on local government levels, and we will be looking at ways to enforce compliance. We know that housing needs to sit alongside infrastructure. So if you get growth, you will get infrastructure too. We want to work in partnership. But at the end of the day, if councils aren't prepared to step up on behalf of their local community, and every part of New South Wales and Sydney in particular share a bit of the growth that we know we need, then the state government does need to come in and ensure that councils are doing the work to deliver that.
How long are you going to give them? So what kind of timeline are you giving? Are you giving them 6 months to sort themselves out? Are you then going to turn around and say, well, you need to approve renovations, developments, whatever they are, within a 3-month turnaround? Is that the kind of thing you're looking at?
I'm not quite sure in terms of we've settled on timeframes. What we have done is said between now and the end of the year, we're going to get our own house in order, because it is a bit rich to say to councils, geez, you're part of the problem. And some of them are, without the state government also stepping up and reforming our processes, which we are doing. But councils, 6 months towards the end of the year, we're going to get our show in order, and we encourage them. Some councils are great, Laura. I really have to say some of them have already stepped up and said, we have land, we want to work with you. But you are right. the extent that others aren't prepared to be part of that shared conversation, well, they're on notice that the state government is about delivering more affordable housing, and we expect them to be part of that process.
And part of this plan is selling public land to private developers, is it not?
No, not necessarily. We're identifying the land right now. I mean, in most instances, the government will retain ownership of that land. We can use our vehicles such as Landcom and the Land and Housing Corporation to activate that land for housing. That's probably where we'll start in that process.
Okay, but it is a possibility, right? And look, I'm not trying to, this is not a gotcha moment, but you won an election based on no privatisation, how evil it is. But in this instance, you're going to need a little bit, perhaps. Just want to know that you're open to it.
We're open to everything. We're open to everything, but people should be clear. Government will retain ownership of land in most of those instances. It is a valuable asset. And,
how does that work? How does that work? So only social housing that you would sell, you'd get developers involved in? That's not usually what developers are looking at. They want to make a profit. And the federal government's just brought in a build to rent program for developers, a tax break on that. So developers want to make money. Let's be honest about that. How would you still retain the land?
Well, because you can sell the asset on the land. So, you can build housing on the land, a mixture of social, affordable, private market housing. Some of that housing could be sold, freehold title to, people who want to live there. Some of it could be social and affordable housing. So, the asset can be mixed tenure, but the land that it sits on, which is a valuable asset, will be retained in government hands most of the time.
Okay, I'm not quite sure how that works, but another conversation later. I want to quickly get you on Airbnb because no one seems brave enough to tackle this. Yes, I know there are reports floating around, particularly in the Byron Bay area, about what limiting Airbnb in those areas would do to tourism, etc. But do you admit in Sydney in particular that something needs to be done about that? Because you look at some suburbs and you cannot find any rentals. But then you go on Airbnb and there are a plethora of them. What do you propose to do about that?
As I said, everything's on the table. So we do admit that short-term letting has had an impact in terms of housing availability and affordability in particular areas of Sydney and particular areas of our regions. What we intend to do about it is consider the recommendations of the Independent Planning Commission. They've started looking at the Byron Shire. They've made a series of recommendations there, but they are, the kind of things that they're talking about are applicable statewide where these issues have popped up. That report is before my colleague, the Planning Minister, right now. I know he's looking at it actively, and he will be looking to implement not just responses in Byron, but statewide where this is becoming a problem.
Yeah, okay, so that is firmly in your frame then, along with the Planning Minister. Again, can you give us a timeline on that?
Look, I don't have a time frame from Paul about when he's going to, release his response to the IPC recommendations. I know that he's working through them right now. I mean, I think all of us bring urgency to this challenge, Laura. There's, not a day that goes by that we're not talking about approvals, completions, infrastructure, social and affordable supply, rental reform, short-term letting. There are so many, points in the constellation where the system is broken right now, and we're working through those, but we are bringing urgency to that challenge. We know that this is a huge issue.
Okay, it certainly is. Look forward to speaking to you next time frequently as well. We'll see you soon, Rose.
Always a pleasure, Laura. Lovely. Thank you.